All right, what's going on? What is going on? So, we're going to get into the podcast in a minute. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about rest days, how to program them into your week, how to know that you need a new one, how to know that you need to add one, and basically just how to make sure you're training optimally instead of just grinding harder, trying to do the most possible. Finding that proper balance, because again, that proper balance is what is going to make the difference between you being successful in your sport and you burning yourself out and potentially getting injured. And yeah, so 1 second, something's going wrong with one of the streams. Looks like we're good now. All right. So we're going to get into the show right away. But before we do, make sure that if you have tuned into the show before and you've gotten value, make sure to share the show with a friend, share the show with a teammate, share this live stream out so that more people can reach this message. James, what's going on? Appreciate you tuning in. So we're going to get into it. We're talking about rest days, and we are going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the number one show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are going to be talking about rest days. So why did I want to bring this topic to you guys? So this is something that is extremely important and something that so many of you guys overlook within your training. You know, I understand the mentality of the more work I do, the better I'm going to get at the sport. But the problem with that is that if all you are doing is trying to push yourself, you're missing out on the recovery. And you don't grow while you train, you grow while you recover. So if you don't recover, you don't grow. And if you don't grow, you don't make the improvements you're looking for in the sport. So rest days are an absolutely crucial element of this, and that is what we're going to be getting into today. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is how to program rest days into your week. The reason I wanted to talk about that is because I see so many athletes that either don't have a rest day and just try to train 7 days a week, or they have one, but they don't truly see the importance behind it, or they go about their rest day the wrong way. So my first recommendation for you is have one day every week, absolutely mandatory, that you are not training, you are not pushing yourself, you're allowing your body to recover and get yourself ready for a new week of training. Now, this day can be on the weekend when you can just, completely chill. This can be a day during the week if that works better with your training schedule. It doesn't necessarily matter when it is, you just need to have one. Now, the reason it's so important to have a consistent one is because, again, your body needs to recover. If you're not recovering, you're not growing. And so by scheduling it in and understanding each and every week, this same day, I am recovering, I'm not training, I'm not pushing myself, I'm letting myself recover for the next day, you're going to be able to keep consistent, make sure that you're never overworking any one area, and in turn be able to see more improvements both in your physical condition and back into your sport. Now, when it comes to the rest day itself, this is another issue I see with a lot of athletes is they have a rest day, but they hate their rest day because they don't know how to actually go about it correctly. When I say a rest day or, a recovery day, I don't mean park yourself on the couch and don't move for 24 hours. And a lot of people think that, it's a recovery day, so I can't do anything. It's like, personally, what I use my recovery day for during the week is getting my meals prepped for the week, making sure that on the days that I'm lifting, and obviously a lot of the people watching this or listening to this are doing, some sort of combat training on top of lifting, so your week is a little different than mine. But the way I use my rest days most effectively, and what I'd invite you to do as well, is use those as your days to be productive in all the other areas. So getting your meals prepped, making sure you get a good recovery in, and then actually doing a recovery session. And this is something a lot of you guys overlook too. You think, it's rest day, so I can't do anything. But if you're like me and you don't like taking days completely off where you do nothing, program things into your week that you can do that don't take a lot of physical exertion. So one of the things I have most of my athletes doing on recovery days is a full body mobility session. Literally from the top of the body all the way down, or from the bottom of the body all the way up, hit everything, just working on range of motion, getting your body moving through full ranges of motion and making sure that you're in a position where when you come into your next session the next day, you're loose, you're feeling good, and the body's actually ready to take on the new week of training. The other thing I get a lot of athletes doing on recovery days is hand-eye coordination drills. I know if any of my athletes are listening to this, you've done those tennis ball drills. A lot of you don't like those tennis ball drills, but you see the benefit of them. Different things where like you're holding two tennis balls and you got to throw and catch both of them off the wall, and spending, 10, 15 minutes doing hand-eye coordination work, different variations of juggling drills, whatever else it is that you've got that you can start adding in. Now, the purpose of these drills is not to physically exhaust yourself, but the purpose of these drills is to get your brain firing, get your body working in a different kind of way so that you can still recover, but you're also not spending your time physically exerting yourself and burning yourself out for the next day of training. One of my guys is on the live stream right now saying, I still can't juggle to this day. It'll come, man. Keep working at it. I promise you. But those kind of hand-eye coordination drills help you move forward in your sport without physically exerting yourself so that you can still recover, but you're also not finishing that rest day off feeling like you wasted your time. Now, one of the other really important things that I wanted to talk about with this episode, and it is going to be a pretty quick one today, is how to understand if you need another rest day in your week. So like I said, one day, mandatory, don't let yourself train on that one rest day, whatever that day is for you. But there are going to be times where you need an extra one. And I have a lot of athletes, actually one example that I wanted to talk about. I had one of my athletes text me on Friday this past week saying that, he felt like he might need an extra rest day, but wanted to know what I thought. So, I asked him how the rest of the week of training went. And he said that day he had trained earlier that day. And he said the session was just awful. He was struggling to pay attention and he just wasn't feeling good. And I told him, I was like, you know your body. If you feel like you need to rest today and you don't want to come in and you don't want to come in for the strength session, I trust you and, do what you need to do. And so he told me, okay, I'm going to take the rest day and I'll keep you posted tomorrow how I feel. And he texted me the next day and he told me that he got home and 30 minutes after our conversation, which was at about 4 p.m., he fell asleep and he woke up the next morning. So if you're sleeping for 12, 15 hours, pretty good indication that you needed the rest day. So good thing that he took it. Now, the way that you can tell if you need another rest day or if you're just, feeling quote unquote soft and not wanting to train is pretty simple. If you're training one day and you're struggling to pay attention, you're training one day and your coach is explaining, hey, okay, this is the drill we're going to be doing. We're throwing, this specific combination, or we're working on this specific submission or this takedown or whatever it is that you are actually doing. What you need to realize is that is not you being lazy. That is your brain telling you you need a rest day. So if you're training one day and you feel like you can't pay attention, you feel like people have to repeat information 5, 6, 7 times before it's actually getting through your head, that's not just you being lazy. That's your brain telling you you need a rest day. And another way to really tell with that is if you're going to training, especially if you're a high-level athlete, the chances are you want to train. The chances are you want to train. You enjoy it. You're there for a reason. But if you wake up one morning, you really don't want to train, then you go into training that day and you're thinking, oh, okay, I'll just warm up and then I'll be fine and everything will be good. And you just hate that whole training session. You're like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. This sucks. Ugh. That's probably another indication you need a rest day. Because if you love your sport, you don't hate training. There are going to be days, obviously, that are hard, whatever, but you don't hate training. So if you have days where you are legitimately hating being there, then that's an indication you need to take a day off because you're burning yourself out. The reason you hate it that day isn't because you're a pussy. It's not because you're soft. It's because you're fucking burnt out. And that's okay. And so many athletes push back on that because they're like, well, you just need to, push through that, grind through it, and, keep on going, or like, suck it up, buttercup, or I hear all kinds of dumb shit when I talk about this stuff. But guys, remember the goal of training. The goal of training is to succeed in the sport. Plain and simple. That's it. The goal of training is to succeed in the sport, nothing else. So if you are in a position where 2-3 days in a row, you are hating being at the gym, you're burnt out, your body doesn't feel good, you can't pay attention, you're struggling with every little drill that they're giving you, what do you think you're going to get more out of? Staying and hating it and struggling for 3, 4, 5 more days? Or taking a fucking day off, resetting, recharging, and then coming back at it the next day with energy? What are you going to get more out of? I promise you, you are going to get more out of taking the day off, relaxing, and then coming back at it the next day with more energy. Because right away, you're going to be more alert, you're going to be able to pay attention, and you're going to get more out of that session, and you're not going to frustrate yourself by simply trying to grind through shit that feels terrible. So let's summarize this. Nice and quick one today, but let's summarize it. Number one thing you need is you need a consistent rest day in your week. If you are pushing yourself for 10, 12 days in a row, you are going to start burning out. You're going to start feeling those aches and pains coming on. Your body is not going to feel good. You are going to want to quit. You're going to start having issues. So if you have that consistent rest day, pick a day. Every Sunday is a rest day, period. You don't go train on Sundays. Keeping that is going to be like if you were on a road trip, stopping at the gas station and filling up the tank before it actually empties out. If you try to go too long, the tank empties, problems happen, right? So now, number one, having the consistent rest day. Number two, programming extra rest days. Do not feel like extra rest days are taking away from your week. This is a mindset switch you need to make. If you need an extra rest day, if your body is aching, you don't want to be there, information isn't processing well, this is an indication you need an extra rest day. Because the goal of training is what? Not to show that you work the hardest, not to flex on everyone about how fucking tough you are grinding through the days that suck. The goal of training is to succeed in the sport. How do you succeed in the sport? You get the most out of your training that you can. Not you spend the most hours training, you get the most out of your training. Big difference there. And so instead of just grinding through it every single day when you feel beat up, sore, in pain, not able to concentrate, etc., take the day, relax, recharge, reset, and get back to it. Because coming at that next day with more energy, coming at that next day more alert is going to allow you to get more out of it, which in turn is going to put a better athlete back into competition, which is the ultimate goal. So the big thing I want you guys to take away from that is the mindset shift. Getting away from thinking I have to train as much as possible all the time, no matter what, and starting to understand that the goal of the training is to put the best athlete back into competition. It's not the most hours, it's the most intentional hours. It's not the most time, it's what you get out of that time. You can be at the gym for 3 hours, but if you're talking for 2 of them, you can get 3 hours of work done. Whereas the guy who's there for an hour and a half and training hard the whole time was there half the time, but got more work done, right? That is the goal. So making sure that you're being smart and actually focusing on what your body needs and not just trying to show everyone how tough you are. You training more than that guy or that guy or that guy or whoever doesn't matter. You getting the most out of your training is what makes the difference. So I appreciate you all for tuning in. As always, though, if you got some value from this, make sure to share the podcast out. Make sure to subscribe so that you can check out all the other episodes. And most of all, make sure that, again, take a screenshot of this, share it with a friend who needs to hear it, share it with a coach, share it with a teammate, share it with someone who doesn't like to take their rest days, and make sure that you are spreading this show around. The goal of this show, like I mentioned, is to help athletes in every way that we can. And we do that through word of mouth. We do that through people sharing the show around. We do that through, people taking value from the show. And so do that for you, do that for me, do that for your friends and your teammates who need to hear this message. So I appreciate you all for tuning in, especially if you made it this far. Thank you. I appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next episode.